Welcome to the Racing Pigeon International Podcast. We talk about everything racing pigeons, the latest news, results, events, and interviews from around the world.
Welcome to Racing Pigeon International. Today I'm really pleased to be speaking to John Gladwin and John Cownlin from Formula One Lofts down here in Essex to talk to them about their phenomenal results, their history and everything that they've been doing in pigeon sport. So, welcome both.
Thank you.
We'll get straight into it. What was your inspiration and how did you get into the pigeon sport?
Want me to start?
You must start.
So literally I was born into pigeons, being the third generation fancier. My granddad and then my dad and my mum actually still raced together. And literally, as I say, I was born into it. I was actually born on the Saturday of the first young bird race. My mum went into labour when the pigeons had just gone up. And she said to my dad, wait in time the young ones in first, then come up because you won't miss anything. And actually, by the time he got up to the hospital, I'd been born. So, and so they had them around me ever since. So I've never had a break from pigeons since then. So.
What about you, John?
For me, my granddad raced pigeons, which was Teresa's dad. He got me involved in them, started helping him out when I was about 12, and then obviously got to know John from onwards now.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And obviously granddad helped me start with, and then John and his dad helped me. And yeah, so I've gone from there, and then started up.
So
My dad's helped me.
Mentors?
My mentors probably.
Mentors?
No, probably you to start with. Sort of left you behind now. Probably you. My granddad helped to start with, and then my dad. My dad's helped me. He weren't involved in pigeons, but we do it together. And that's from there. That's where it's gone, isn't it?
Mm.
Very good. Are there any flyers anywhere in the world, current or past, that kind of inspire you, that made you want to aim to where you've got now?
It's certainly locally, yeah. I mean, there was a couple of really good, it's a good few fanciers locally when I was young and growing up that kind of always thought would like to be at that level at some point at the time. So we had the likes of Johnny Nichols that literally used to live opposite, or still does opposite my mum and dad. And he was at the top of his game in the 90s, and see his pigeons drop in every week. I've always been kind of further afield with people like the Jansen brothers, how they sort of produced a family of pigeons and how they kept that family going. That's still so many years later actually in a lot of the top pigeons pedigrees, and that kind of thing has always sort of inspired me to how you build such a legacy in the family that lasts the test of time.
Okay, excellent. Anything with you, Johnny?
Yeah, for me, I think like John Buckfield locally, he's always, for me, he's an inspiration because he's done it. He does it every single year, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. He pulls out good performances.
Yes, yeah.
So here's a difficult question. We're going to go straight into the difficult one. So, what's the best pigeon you've owned, both of you, either individually or what would you, if you said you could turn back the clock and own that pigeon again as an example, what would it be? And second part of the question, what do you see your future star being?
Some tough ones there.
It was a tough one.
Never easy, that kind of question, because it definitely, I mean, we got three sort of main stars in the last couple of 3 years, I guess.
You're allowed to give three.
So like
with the pigeons you've got, it's hard to name one, I get it. So.
Yeah, so likes of D'Artagnan obviously is responsible for so many big wins that you think of him automatically, and the Moor as well. If I had to really go for one and have it again as a young pigeon, it would definitely be Tip Top Junior. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of winners come down from him at massive levels. So yeah, having him again as a yearling in the loft would be very nice, to say the least.
For you,
Yeah,
John?
probably the same. Tip Top Junior when he'd be the pigeon.
Yeah.
I think 'cause he come through so much, didn't he? So for me, it'd be Tip Top Junior.
And what were his results, for people that don't know?
So Tip Top Junior never actually raced. He was always a stock pigeon, but he's responsible for over 30 times first nationals in between Holland and the UK. Against up to sort of 20,000 pigeons. But his line just keeps coming and coming. 4 or 5 generations are still winning all over. And anybody that was pretty much lucky enough to have a direct child got super pigeons out of them. It's
Pretty much every child did the business.
yeah, it was all breeding winners. And
you don't get many pigeons like that, do you?
no, exactly. And it's now we're like great grandchildren, and they're winning. And then once they produce in the race loft, they go to breeding, and then they're also producing winners as well. So such a potent line of pigeon that keep going down the lines.
So, again, for people that don't know, and look, we talked about how you got into pigeons, but you are best now known, famous for the Francois, but that was quite an interesting story how that happened, and prior to that you were doing well with pigeons, you had other pigeons as well, but can you tell people how Francois came around to be such a big part of Formula One Lofts?
Yeah, so to step back slightly before that question, so we started Formula One Lofts in 2003, and the first pigeons we bought was the M&D Gabbies and also the Ron Williamson's pigeons. And they done well for us. We had winners and stuff. Come 2009, we was looking at trying something else. So we ended up going around Holland and Belgium, done some loft visits to different people. And one of them was Francois. And we sort of liked what we see. I'm a big believer in when you're buying pigeons, you've got to buy pigeons from somebody you've got a chance to replicate what they do. There's no good me going to buy pigeons from somebody who's 3 or 4 people working the lofts, they're full time doing it, because I can't do that. I've got to go to work and everything else. Franz was a doctor in Holland, so and his wife would help, but she was no pigeon fancier. She would do the odd bits. So for us, it ticked the boxes there. We had a good chance to replicate what he was doing. So we decided to buy a round of youngsters off him for the 2010 season, which we put to stock. We liked them so much that while we were there picking them up, we ordered a further round from his stock loft in 2011. And then from there, we become good friends. It was an instant success for us. The very first youngster that I actually bred and wrung out of them, we put a NFC gold ring on it, and it won the NFC gold ring. That was the very first Francois pigeon we ever wrung, and they went on and won from the word go. So staying good friends with Franz in 2015, he rang us and we had a chat, and he said that he was getting out of the pigeon sport. He'd retired from work and he wanted to do some other bits. So he said, would we be interested in buying every pigeon in his loft? He could have a big auction and make a lot more money than what we ended up paying, but he really wanted somebody to carry the legacy, which at that point was 40 years that he built one family of pigeons up, and he didn't want them just to be 50 people own a pair kind of thing. He wanted to make sure that somebody took them on and carried on working. So after a lot of back and forth and trying to rake up enough money, we decided that we would do the deal, and we bought everything in the November 2015. So every pigeon in his loft at that time, every race bird, stock bird, everything. So yeah, and then it's kind of history from there. They've gone on and done very well for us. Definitely took us to the next level of racing.
I was going to say that's elevated. That was a pivotal moment in Formula One Lofts.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess we were reasonable average flyers before that, and then they competed us at whether it's winning nationals, winning the Golden de Doif, them kind of things. Our pigeons winning one-off races. It took us completely to a different level of results.
I guess proves the theory that you knew what you were doing with pigeons before. You were good, perhaps weren't great.
Yeah.
It was the genetics of the Friends Wold that perpetuated to become great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. You look at Lewis Hamilton and whatever. I'm obviously a big Formula One fan, but you look at Lewis Hamilton when he's got the best car, he's winning with ease. Now, the last couple of seasons, his car's not the best. He's struggling to make the podium, you know. His talent and skill hasn't dived that much. It's just, you know, if you've not got the right equipment, you're not going to, you know, be at the very top level of anything.
No. What would you say, both of you, question to both of you individually, maybe it's the same answer, was the most memorable moment of your racing pigeon?
Probably different answers. Go on, John, I'll let you go first.
And mine's, I put Tat in the first 8 in the NFC Youngbird.
The first 8?
Yeah, that was my highlight, I think.
Oh, yeah, highlight.
Definitely.
Explain the circumstances of that. I mean, you say it as if that's quite a blasé answer, but that's a massive, again, to people that don't know you, that's huge.
Yeah, I think the best in the history of the NFC was first 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, previously. In over 100 years of the NFC, the best anybody had ever done was take the first 4.
First 8.
Yeah.
And then them same pigeons went back the following week and won the BRCC National, didn't they?
Yeah, taking the first 3.
So that's like your best moment over a week.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, pretty special for that one.
Yeah.
Amazing. What about you, John?
So for me, would have to be timing Tip Top Tour out of Argent when she won the national 56 international against 22,000 pigeons on the hottest day ever recorded in France, and she flew 531 miles. Must have crossed the channel very late at night, and then got up and done the last sort of 40, 50 miles in the morning to be clocked quite early in the morning. So it was, for me, it was a hell of an achievement of a pigeon. I don't think anybody who was in the race actually expected to get pigeons early that morning. We were talking to people, everybody thought it'd be well after lunch before anything would get through to the UK. So,
do you remember what time came in? Roughly?
Yeah, just after 6 in the morning.
Yeah, so like I say, it was in the UK way before.
Yeah, she must have been very close on the night to... Yeah, she definitely couldn't have stayed in France and crossed and got up to me. So there was well, seeing her drop was a bit of an experience, to say the least.
An experience you never forget.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
Wow. What excites you in the sport? Looking forward, you've achieved pretty much. Is there anything else you want to achieve?
Well, first international would be nice. I guess that's one big goal. Also to win the Grand National in the NFC, is another goal for the future. But yeah, I mean, it's just keep being consistent, keep enjoying the racing as well. I mean, it's the minute you don't enjoy it, then it's not the sport for you, is it? It's you know, we like to do well, but we also like the camaraderie of the club that we're in, you know, socialising.
You're in a hotbed down here. I mean, we were talking earlier before we started filming. You're competing against top people down here.
Yeah.
This is, again, for people that don't know, this is a hotbed down here. You're competing some big names.
Yeah. Exactly.
Fanciers.
Yeah, some really top fanciers, you know, that, you know, from everything from sprinting to middle distance to long distance, people were here. Yeah, I think 1 year alone in our club there was 7 national wins in our club in one season between us. You know, it's it's very competitive, even just to win at club level, let alone you know, anything beyond that. So
just on club level, it's a hotbed of names that everybody in the UK knows.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
So you've got to keep on your toes, and but I'd say also enjoy it. We're very lucky in that the club is a very good club. You know, we socialise together regularly. You know, during the season, out the season, go to the national presentations and the like together, or the shows. You know,
so the camaraderie is there.
Exactly.
Which in a lot of places is not as much because the clubs are just not as big. But down here, you've got still big club sizes, decent member sizes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there is that big thing.
Exactly.
You see some of the presentation nights on social media; they're amazing nights.
Yeah, and I think also when yeah, when it is difficult clubs, everybody appreciates whoever wins it. You know, they know that they've worked hard and they've got a good pigeon to win it. It's not dominated. I mean, our club highest prize winner will often, at club level, will often have somewhere between 4 to 6 firsts a season. You know, it's so everybody's in the mix. You know, it's you don't get any of that resentment or jealousy or things like that you get maybe in some other clubs where someone wins 19 firsts a year.
All about. I saw a video. I've mentioned this before on video. I saw a video that somebody posted from a Mexican pigeon race, and people were jumping up and down, shouting. In a lovely way, because one of their guys had won.
Yeah.
And it was lovely to see.
Yeah.
And you get that more down here because people know you work damn hard for it.
Exactly. When anyone wins a national here and the result comes out and they walk into the club, everybody stands and claps them and whatever. And you know, we normally have a very late night in the bar that when anyone wins a national.
Somebody else had a late night last night.
Yes. Have you noticed yet?
Yeah. So we've been down here all day from lunchtime, and we spent quite a lot of time at John Gladwin's place because you were still recovering, weren't you, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Still looking a bit flushed now, aren't you?
Going back to the Francois, what I like about them, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, I've known about you guys for a long time. I've known about the Francois. There's actually my son Zandy, who's sitting outside a shop, but who's been banging on to John Gladwin about these pigeons and me for quite a while now. What I like about them is, well, from handling all the top pigeons today, they're steady as anything. They're super intelligent, they're switched on. But what I really like about them is that they genuinely can do anything up to 550 miles. You'll have them scoring as young birds at 70 miles, even going into older birds, but the versatility of them. There's not many pigeons around. Like, I know you've said that the history of the Francois, there was Janssens in them. I mean, they, for me, back 30 years ago, were a versatile pigeon. So it probably tells you a lot. But that's the versatility of these pigeons. You can fly them way before the channel. They'll hit the channel. You were saying earlier that the longest you've had them scoring out of was 530?
580. They were second national Narbonne, 581 miles, yeah.
Which is amazing, isn't it? That versatility of them. You don't get that much in families. And that's the other thing. It is a family. We were speaking earlier again before, and you were saying that Franz didn't do what most people in Belgium and Holland do and go and get great pigeons from here, there and everywhere. He kept the family relatively pure. Explain a little bit about that, if you would, to people. Yeah,
so Franz started racing by himself and in the pigeon game in 1975, and he'd done a lot of homework beforehand and identified basically 4 sources that he wanted to buy pigeons from. And he basically brought from them 4 lofts, and he moulded them and crossed them in to make his own family. And all the way up until 2015, when he packed up, he added very little into them original pigeons. Yes, he would buy pigeons that were very closely already related on the same lines that he had, and he might add them in. So if Fancy had a new superstar, then it was on the same sort of lines. He would buy another child off that, or brother or sister, and add him. He would always buy 2 pigeons every year as well. So he was also president of the MPO and stuff, so he had his finger on the pulse with what was good in Holland and Belgium. And he would sometimes go and buy a pair from a top racer, or brothers and sisters to a top racer. He would add them in. They would get 2 breeding seasons, 2 young bird seasons and a yearling season. If they didn't make the grade, he removed everything in his loft from that bloodline at all. So even if it was still in the race loft, if they didn't make the grade, it went. So he didn't ever contaminate or dilute the gene pool with anything that he thought was inferior. So only the better ones or something that he thought improved by racing would stay. The other thing he did do was he done a bit of cross joint breeding with people. So if somebody had a real good champion, he would then maybe put that with one of his. They would split the young uns, but again, the young uns had to prove themselves in the race basket. And if they'd done well in the race basket, then they might eventually make the stock loft. But again, they had to perform before they could do that. So.
And I think that's another unique thing about these pigeons is there's not that many groups of pigeons you can actually genuinely call a family.
No, exactly, yeah. And so you're 48 years or something, these families now been blended together. And we've carried on in exactly the same way. So we've sort of the odd one that have come from joint breeding, so it's half Francois and maybe in cross that we've put in. That's worked well as to up the bloodlines again. But very few pigeons have actually been crossed into them in the last 8 years since we've had them. So it's we keep trying to sort of evolve the family. It's worked for so long. Each year they seem to actually get better and better from each generation. So, why change something that's winning?
It's like you said about the pigeon earlier, that 4 or 5 generations down, still producing the goods.
Exactly,
That's all you need to know about a good family of pigeons.
Yeah, and the longevity of them, the vitality of them, as you handled some today that are 17 years old, and actually if you had a blindfold on, you'd think they're maybe 4 or 5 years old. It's and we got older pigeons still filling and stuff. It's in the loft, so I always think that's a good sign again of the vitality of a bloodline. Is if it carries on, to old age, then that's got to be a good thing.
Every pigeon I personally handled today is stunning. Got results, lovely. The standout pigeon for me, my favourite, is D83.
D32, yeah.
D32,
yeah.
D32, yeah, that's the standout pigeon that and you were telling about the history of that and the offspring, handled its offspring as well. I mean, what a pigeon. Is that the pigeon you'd say is your future breeding superstar? Is there any others that people should look out for?
I think D32 is definitely going to have a big say in the future. I mean, he actually raced for me direct off D'Artagnan when D'Artagnan was paired to Dream Girl 200. I mean, interesting thing with that, we bred 4 of them in 2016, all the same way bred. And out of them, one was sold at an auction. Don't know who bought it and never heard any more about it. One we put up to our Fed fundraiser that was brought by a couple of local fanciers. That's bred both of them national winners.
Wow.
D32's bred first Open NFC, 2 first combines, second combine, and the other sister, which is a pigeon I call Special Lady, she's bred a first national and a second national. So out of the 3 out of the 4 we bred that year that way, 3 of them are bred national winners and multiple top performance pigeons.
And you don't know what the other one did, but
no.
Chances are that might have done something.
It might well have done, yeah. So it's so I mean D32 is definitely I think an upcoming star for us. Piedmore.
Yeah, Piedmore.
I mean
he's handled Piedmore earlier as well. We'll put a picture of him up. That's a hell of a pigeon. That's a beast of a pigeon.
Yeah, and he's still relatively young from a breeding point of view, and he's bred second Open National Flying Club in 22, and then this year he bred first section in the National completely against the wind, and that pigeon was 20 minutes in front of the next fancier in our section in the National. So I mean, it's a different day. You never know, but that would have had a good chance in the National one as well. I'm sure it would have been very high. So.
What would you say your biggest passion in the sport is? Because these pigeons are diverse. Is there anything, what race point or what mileage gets you, what type of racing gets you the most excited?
It's probably moved from my perspective over time. So, there was a period where we really were sprinting and done well at that. Then we were sort of really focused on the middle distance nationals, which is probably still where, I think the middle distance, them sort of 300 mile kind of nationals, is where the real peak is. It's where the biggest birdage is. It's everybody's having to go. The sprint boys will push their pigeons to there. The distance pigeons are starting to think about kicking in. So I think they're the always big prestigious races. But I think once you go over the 500 mile as well, then that's is an extra buzz, as we were saying earlier. Suddenly it's not just about winning at them. Sometimes just getting one home in a good time is also seen as an achievement. So, how about you, John?
Yeah, for me, I love the Young Bird Nationals and Old Ends Nationals. I enjoy them. But I think the long-term goal will be the 500 plus. My races, Tarbs, being one of them that I would like to have a go at and compete.
Tarbs is on the hit list.
Yeah.
Yeah, at
For
some
both
point.
of us.
Yeah.
If you were starting again, what would you do different, if anything? If you were starting again now, and when you look back, is there anything you think, well, would have saved time doing that instead, or?
I think if I'm starting afresh with no knowledge whatsoever, and I say this to people, novices and stuff, when they come and they sometimes ask to buy pigeons and things like that, is that actually spend a year or two just learning the ropes. Enjoy the pigeons. Don't go and invest big money to start with. Learn, make the mistakes that we all make, and then you can sort of work towards having the right tools for the job, because it's no good having the right tools for the job but no knowledge how to use them. So so it's getting that right balance. But I think the one thing I proved to myself over the years is you do need them right tools as well. It's when you really want to compete at that top level, if you've not got the pigeons for it, you're not going to do it. You can put all the effort, all the time, all the money into it, but it's like anything. If you've not got the best around you, you can't hope to compete against the best. I mean, pigeon racing's moved. I think, yes, numbers have dropped in the UK, but I think actually the standards and what you need to do to win has increased. So I think probably people's knowledge is there. Anybody can learn quite quickly and easily off the internet nowadays how to do the basics and to do even beyond that, where maybe it took you 20 years to learn that in the past. By trial and error. Now it's there, it's instant. People can get to a good level quite quickly. So it's I mean, I think you got to be at the top of your game, and you can only do that with the quality tools around you.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, I don't think I'd change too much. Like you said, getting the good pigeons quicker probably. But again, that's just learning, isn't it? You've got to make them mistakes to improve.
The right time.
Yes, I don't think I'd ever. Probably, if I started again, I'd go and get the best pigeons I could get straight away. Whereas when you start, you have a few pigeons here, a few pigeons there for people to help you. Whereas now, knowing you need the right tools for the job. That's all I'd change.
Okay. Are there any books that you'd recommend people should read that you've read in the past that you still think are relevant? Onwards from that last question.
I think Dave Allen's book, even though it's old, I can't remember what it's actually called now. Can you? Yes, exactly. I think there's still a lot of very good tips in there to get you the basics, and in reality, things have moved a little bit, but actually if you get the basics right, then you can tweak and everything from there. But it's a difficult one, because I don't believe there's a book or there's a system or a video or anything you can watch and follow it to the rules and still get the same success, unless you're racing in the same location and in the same loft as that person. Every loft operates slightly differently. You'll have some lofts that come into form earlier in the year, some that are a bit later generally, depending on what heat or stuff they're getting. And even every season, I know people that write meticulous notes, and then they have a great season. They say, right, I'm going to do the same again, and they follow that pattern, but don't do so well at all the following year, because maybe that year's it's all headwinds, or it's a lot colder, or so actually what you done last year is not applicable. I mean, even what you done last week is often not applicable, as the seasons change.
I've said my personal opinion with, it could be most sports related to livestock or horses, but with pigeons, it's genetics at the key. Got to have the right stuff, like you said, to start. Management, you got to know what you're doing, but then there's also that third element of conditions, whether that be liberation conditions, winds, birds of prey. There's that element that is out of your control. So like you just said, one year it can be working great and then the exact same thing. So there's that, some would say it's luck or conditions.
Yeah, but what you've got to do in the pigeon game is, yes, you have 20 odd races a season, but they're not all going to be in your favour. The trick is being ready when it is your day, when you've got a chance, isn't it? It's, be having them pigeons just there for that day at the top of their form. So it's, so you make your own luck to a degree.
I think if you've got them a high level to start with, then you've got your chance, haven't you?
Yeah.
If they're already up there, and I think with lofts and lights and everything, if you keep them pigeons at a high level, even if it ain't against you, your level only comes down so far, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And with regards to the regime that you keep your racing pigeons on, is there any tips you can give away of how you feed and treat them? And we were talking earlier, more or less, John used the chaos system, as you call it.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to share there?
Yeah, I mean, I use that just for ease and quickness, really. So especially on a Friday, I just literally don't have the time to be, getting hens, shutting them in boxes and the cocks, or even for a national on a Thursday morning, because I've got to get them basketed and ready before I go to work. So I tend to, they're separated, different sections, the hens and the cocks, and I just open the sliding doors just before I basket. They all run together, pick their mates, more often than not, obviously they go back to their previous mate, but if you've lost a hen or a cock, they'll soon pair up again to something else. And exactly the same on the Saturday, they drop into the loft. They go wherever they want within the whole loft, and they can pick a mate, pair up, take a box, whatever they want to do, wherever they want to do it. For me, that works, and I think it gives a bit of motivation as well, because if a cock's late, his hen might have gone off with somebody else, or another cock's eyeing up his box already. So sometimes that will also help actually for the following week's motivation. But I think the best tip is, and as said, we was discussing this earlier, is you've got to be very adaptable in pigeons. I think these days is that there isn't I feed an ounce a day or an ounce and a quarter a day, because every day's different. Start the season when it's often very cold, pigeons need a little bit more just to maintain themselves. If you're pushing early training, to get that early fitness into them, they definitely need a bit more food. As I said to you earlier, I always kind of think of it as a full tank of petrol. If I'm just popping to the shop, I don't need a full tank of petrol. If I'm driving, 500 miles, I need a full tank of petrol before I leave. And it's the same with the pigeons. What you've put in is their fuel. So, you've got to think what's happened before. Well, how much did you take out in the previous journey? And how much are you likely to take out on the journey that's coming, i.e. the next race?
Cool. Anything from you, John, on that?
No, I think obviously feeding wise, I think they're saying like if you're going to train hard, you obviously feed hard, but even like I race more traditional widowhood, so I would have food in front of them pretty much all the time, so they fly well around home and still get their fitness. So even though they're not working on the road, they're still flying and you're getting your time around the loft. But my pigeons always get plenty of food.
So moving on a little bit more, sports certainly in the UK, to a degree in Ireland, most of Europe is declining. The conventional racing to backgammon and lofts is declining. Have you got any thoughts on what's wrong, why that is, and what can be done or should be done to change it?
Ooh, It's an interesting question now. We're going to...
Well, the reason I ask is, I don't ask it to everybody, but you've been in it ingrained at the highest level for a long time. And you've seen the change as much as, in fact, more. And different people have got different opinions, you know. At the moment, that the membership numbers for the RPRA, specifically in the UK, probably most places, is certainly in Europe, definitely in the US, things are declining. One area which we'll discuss later is one off races, which is increasing. But is there anything you think could be changed to help turn that round? Should we be doing anything different in your opinion? So just your opinion.
Yeah, my opinion probably differs from 90% of pigeon fanciers in the UK anyway, because I actually believe that we're too cheap. Most people will tell you the hobby's too expensive. Now, certain bits are expensive, but other bits aren't. I don't believe. I mean, if you actually look at what it costs to send a pigeon to a race, it's minimal compared to what it was, even 20 years ago, let alone you go back. I mean, my dad been in the sport for 80 years, and he'll tell you, when he was in the 50s and 60s, he used to have to save up for 2 or 3 weeks to send 3 or 4 pigeons to a 500-mile race, and he actually worked it out a couple of years ago that to send to a 500-mile race, we should be paying nearly £30 a pigeon to be on par with what he was paying in the 50s. And even in club racing in the 90s, when I was racing North Road, we was paying 45 pence a pigeon, to send inland racing. Now, 30 odd years later, we're paying 65 pence, and people think it's expensive. Well, what could you buy 30 years ago for 45p compared to 65p today is non-comparable.
Certainly not petrol.
No, exactly, or beer. It's
or anything related to getting a pigeon over.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so when you look at things that way, but the flip side of that was, in the 90s, we used to be racing for £200 a week. Club level, which was a lot of money. I mean, I remember my dad having a reasonable year just in club racing. It's not winning any breeder buyers or gold rings, and he paid for a family holiday for 2 weeks out of the winnings. Wow. It's nowadays it's you're lucky if you get a piece of card, and things like that keep the family happy, don't they? As well, it's not just the what the person wins, but we're never going to attract swarms of young kids. That's never going to happen into the sport. If we're going to try and attract new people, you need to attract people that, in my mind, are 50 plus, that may well have even had pigeons when they were 12, 13, for a year or two. Good chance that their parents or grandparents might have done, so they half remember the sport. Or even if not, you bring them in fresh. Actually, they've probably not got young kids. They've probably got a bit more disposable income than most. You've got more chance, I think, of bringing them in. And then if you bring them in, then guess what? Their grandkids and whatever might actually get involved, and you might bring in some younger blood that way in the future. But for me, if you look around the world where pigeon racing's increasing, it has one thing in common: they're racing for money, good money. In where it's decreasing all around the world, there's nothing really to race for or value. So and whether we like it or not, we now live in a society where younger people especially want one of two things: fame and fortune. And generally pigeon racing, other than maybe within the sport's not going to give you either of them in the wider picture. No. So unless we can address that kind of thing, I'm not sure how you attract.
There's an argument that people say money has spoiled or is spoiling the sport. I've argued about this at length, and I don't think there's enough money in the sport, and I think the more money the sport gets into it, however that may be, will only help it.
Yeah.
Look at horse racing.
Yeah, and as you said, what's the one thing that's increasing is one-off racing. Now, people love or loathe them, but people get involved because they can win a nice sum of money, for a relatively small outlay.
We'll go on to that in a minute. John, is there anything else?
I think well, we've spoke about it. I think pigeon racing should be in a league, and I think like going forward, you should have your Premier League, and you race for the money. It costs you a lot more to be involved in it. But if you don't want that, you can still have your cheap racing because you'll be a lower league. But at least you know each year you've got to try and stay where you are. I think you should be relegated and drop down to a lower league, back up, and if someone new comes into the sport, they start at the bottom and work their way up. So they're racing against people at their same level, rather than coming in and racing against people at top level straight away.
Yeah, well, and from a new starter's point of view, it's pretty soul destroying to go into a club and get smashed by people who've been doing it for 30 years.
Of course, yeah.
And that's no incentive to anybody. If you, certainly, again, speaking from Zandy's point of view, being 19 years old, if he could start in League 4, his first goal would be to get to 3, ultimately to get to the Premier League.
Yeah.
But that's something to work to. And as well, it works the other way around. Like you say, you've got to keep working to stay in that league.
Exactly.
I don't know why it's not done, but I've talked about leagues myself, and you're right, John. Leagues should be implemented. If somebody new coming into your club now, you've got a tall order to compete within the first few years, if you've got the right pigeons, if you've got everything in place to be able to do it. It's just that experience to be able to do it.
Exactly, and in fact I actually advise people sometimes to, when they do come in new, go and join a slightly different club within our fed, you know, learn the ropes and then come in a couple of years' time, you know, it's, you know, just because it is soul destroying.
That's kind of a league system we were talking about.
Yeah.
Kind of, in a way, you go into a lesser competitive club to start.
Yeah.
That's exactly what a league is, really.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But also it does then potentially foster the idea of actually being a bit more money, people paying more to send a bird, because you're only competing against people who are your own level. I mean, it's like, you know, setting up a new Sunday League football team and having to go and play Man United, you know, oh, and by the way, you've all got to pay £1,000. You know, you might do it once just to do it, but you're not going to keep paying £1,000 and knowing that you're going to get beat. Yeah, you know, it's, you know, but if you're actually flying against people of your level, then it will go round, and everybody then be happy to pay a bit more because, you know, it
creates a fair competition.
Exactly, yeah.
To be able to move up. I agree completely. Yeah. So we touched on it briefly. One-off races. Mm-hmm. I've said again, I think it's the future of the sport. Yes, national specialist races are still going to continue, but I think in the bigger picture, not talking about any one particular flyer as such from an individual's point of view, but in the bigger picture of the sport, conventional flying is going down in numbers, and one-off racing is going up. And like you said earlier, that is not just the money. There's other reasons for it, but money is a big factor there. The other reasons would be, we were in the Algarve, I know you normally guys go down, you can take your family there, it's a holiday, it's an enjoyable few days. So there's other reasons other than just the money. What are your thoughts generally on one-off racing? Obviously, you've achieved, apart from maybe international TARBs win or whatever you may want to be focusing on there long term, within the UK, within national racing, you can't really look to achieve much more than perhaps an international win. What are your thoughts on one-off races generally?
I think they're good. I think they need to be well run, well regulated. Unfortunately, you see some horror stories at times. Yeah. But I think even they need to maybe move in a slightly different direction. It's you know, it's fine in one way, it's what we have, but how can we use that to attract other people into, you know, maybe even people that are not pigeon fanciers? Yeah. You know, there's lots of good ways, I think, to be able to do that, and one-off races is probably the key. We
were talking about this earlier. We were talking about syndicates, the ability to be able to get people in that are not in anything to do with pigeons can get involved in a syndicate for loan money. You can go and own part of the racehorse for as little as £50 now. And also what came up, which you mentioned, was one-off races don't have to be thousands of pigeons, big prize money. You said you could get a young bird team flying in normal club fed racing, and people can get involved in that as a mini one-off race.
Yeah, exactly.
So they don't have to be necessarily the big things.
Well, you've got to cater for different people, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, actually, if you go back to the RPRA with the schools kind of thing, well, actually, if you said, you know, class of 30 kids or whatever, or a year group that may have 70 kids in over that year, if everyone put £1 in, you know, they could follow it on the benzene live and everything else in their club, in their class, in their school, kind of make it a bit of a school project, and actually the winning kid could, you know, win £75 or whatever you wanted to do it, or you split it. You know, it doesn't need to be big money, but it's just a bit of interest, and you know, they could be followed. And yeah, you never know. Then they go home and talk to their parents and stuff. If you got one extra fancier out of it, you know, it's things like that will all help, and help spread the knowledge, because the general public are totally ignorant about pigeons and pigeon racing generally, you know. But most of them are actually interested. You go out, open your car, get your basket out. 9 times out of 10, someone will come over and talk to you about it, and they are actually interested, but they just don't know the mechanics of it, or you know, the history behind it and stuff. So, you know, you could use that then to actually maybe, you know, open doors and to, you know, get new people.
People outside of the sport got to witness a final of a one-off race.
Yeah.
Most people, at least half of them, would be thinking, "This is something I never knew existed, and it's great."
Yeah.
You got any thought? What are your thoughts on one-off racing, John?
Yeah, no, I think there are. I think for me, I'd like them to have. I know it's hard, but I'd like them to have a bit more training, because I think never think they're really prepared for it, and whether they even done the training without marking them and everything else, but just prepare them a bit better for that final. So I think you'd get, if you run that race the following week, I think you'd get a totally different result, because they'd be prepared for it.
Yeah.
But that's my own personal. When they get there, I never feel that the right pigeons probably come through.
Yeah.
I mean, in your own loft, you wouldn't go to 300-mile race and they've been in the basket 12 times or whatever, would you? You would never dream of it, you know. It's, you know, they've probably had 12 races before they get to 300 miles, you know, that know the road training you would have done. So it's...
I think people will need to, train them more as if they were their own racing schedule.
Yeah.
Like during training races, individually sending baskets off. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Why would you send a bulk up of however many hundred if you wouldn't do that if they were your own back garden?
And especially when you're letting them go from 5 miles or wherever, where they're likely to then get their head down and they've gone over, you know, before they've realised they're like kids, aren't they? You know, suddenly chuck them in a pack and they're excitable and they're all running together, and it's exactly the same with the pigeons. They're only young, they're learning. That's why you're only at 2 or 5 miles with them, you know. Actually let them go much smaller, they're a bit more steady.
What success is, I personally, I said this to you earlier, I'd like to see these Rolls pigeons, your pigeons, smashing one-off races. I think they're the type of pigeon to do it, the versatile as we discussed. You've had some results in one-off races?
Yeah, it's, our bloodlines and that have done well. We've our bloodlines that won the British Masters a couple of years ago, £30,000 I believe the first prize was on that. We've won hot spots in Ireland, we've done well in Portugal at different times, but we've never actually really competed that much ourselves in there. You know, there's, when you look through a lot of the results, especially in the UK one-off races, our pigeons are often in there and, you know, doing well. You know, we've had ace birds reported back from bred off a pair of ours and things like that. But us personally, we've always maximum of one loft race with one team a year, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you've been focusing on your own.
Yeah, exactly. But you say the blood there in it is doing it, and you know.
After experiencing these close up, looking at the results, looking at the versatility of them, I'm a big passionate fan of one-off races. I think it's going to change the sport. And like we've discussed, bring more new people in. It's only going to get bigger and better. Yes, it does need some control elements into it and what have you. But after seeing them today, I think these pigeons could smash one-off races. I really do, because they're that versatile. Again, in the UK, even within the UK, different locations require different types of pigeons. But your pigeons have done it, and then you start going overseas in hot climates. You know, maybe they're not quite as tested at that, but they're versatile enough that where they can do it. They're hard pigeons, and I just want to see. I want to see these French rolls competing at more one-off races, because I think they could really light things up. I do. Interesting. So, towards the end, so what does the future hold? Apart from you're going for international, that's your one big goal.
Yeah.
You, I know, due to your personal circumstances, you're reducing numbers, make it more manageable, and what have you. But what do you see the future holds? Is there anything other than carrying on doing what you're doing and keep winning what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like everything else. It's why it's not broken, don't fix it, to a degree. You know, it's unfortunately we got to cut down a little bit, as you said. We're going to close a couple of our stock lofts because we're just getting a bit too much there. I haven't quite got the same help I had from Teresa. She's not been very well, so we've got to cut down a bit. But yeah, you know, sometimes less is more as well. Sometimes having the less leaves you the time to focus on what you have got. So, you know, I'm not sure that would be a bad thing in the long run. So, yeah, we will see. But what is working, we'll keep going. If we have 2 or 3 lean years and it's not going very well, then we'll look to fix it. But
also the fact of the family you've got, there's no bad pigeons there. So it's not like you're reducing to get rid of stuff you don't want. It's purely personal time and health.
Yeah.
You know, so. That's, if anything's going to make it easier for you, it's going to make you be able to concentrate on keeping that momentum going with, albeit.
Exactly. I mean, first and foremost, we've always been about the racing, the breeding side, and the Formula One is very much a secondary. So we had a choice really of either cut down the race birds and concentrate on just a sex part of racing, or cut down the stock bird. So it is a no-brainer. We're going to cut down the stock bird, so we do our first love, which is definitely the racing side. So
it's a racing outfit.
100%. Yeah.
You were saying earlier as well that kind of Formula One Lofts kind of just happened.
Yeah.
Wasn't really a plan. None of this was really a plan.
Far from
just explain how it. You never said, right, we're going to do this. It kind of just, how did it just, obviously we talked about getting those rolls in.
Yeah.
How did it happen?
Well, so back in 2003, what was you, 16?
Yeah, 16, 17.
Yeah. So, and was just starting work. I had a youngish family at the time, and mortgage and whatever to pay. But that's when we knew you needed good pigeons to do well. And we couldn't afford to, keep buying good pigeons constantly, so we said, okay, we'll both put a bit of money in, we'll start Formula One Lofts. We've never ever raced together, ever at all, so we just own the stock birds. We've always raced completely separately at different locations, so we thought we'll buy the stock birds together.
Is that by design?
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to race together.
No.
We have different views and different goals and whatever, so I think we'd end up clashing with that side, so it was always race completely separate, but own the stock birds together. So we done that, and that was where Formula One was born. We bought some pigeons in to start with, as I said earlier, from Gabby van der Beele's, from M&D Evans, and some Ron Williamson pigeons. And the idea was that we sold a few youngsters, out of them. That helped us to put some money back in the pot. And if and when other pigeons come up that we wanted to buy, we would use that money to reinvest, and and we didn't even use it for racing fees, birdage, or feeding them. It was literally every penny we took has always gone back in the pot. So when anything else comes up that took our eye, we could afford to buy it. And it just kind of grew from there. The success with the pigeons we sold kind of demanded more and more, attention to it, and more and more people was interested, more and more people want to do loft visits, wanted to buy pigeons, and it kind of snowballed. I mean, we've never been really big at advertising or pushing the pigeons at all, really. And in fact, I'm probably the other way. Times people leave me messages. I've tried to ring you 5 times to buy a pigeon, and I've not got through to you, and whatever. It's
the big thing is this is not your main. Formula One's not your main. It's not business in any way. It's a hobby that you sell pigeons to sustain building and keeping going. You've both got all the stuff going on, and you this is an addition. This is not
exactly. It's I have a full-time job and everything else as well, which is quite demanding and sends me all around the world at different times. John started up his own business, and all the responsibilities that come with that as well. So it's pigeon racing has to fit in around that. And as we said, the racing is our main goal. So then the Formula One is the next add-on, if you like, from there. So it's like 4th or 5th in the pecking order, if you like, of what has to come first.
And that's what I like about it. It's the racing's the key, and the results speak for themselves. Right, so thank you for this, guys. It's been, I hope people, I'm sure they will have enjoyed it. It's unique to me. The takeaways from today after seeing the pigeons is it is such a unique family. It is a proper family.
Yeah.
No such thing as a pure pigeon, but these are about as consistently one strain as you can get, really.
As I said to you, once you've handled 3 or 4, you've pretty much handled them all. They're very.
To a degree, certainly they've got similar heads and that. There's some different sizes.
Yes.
But they are very samey in a very good way.
Yeah.
So your website is formula1lofts.com.
Yeah.
So people can go there and find out more about you. They can see your results and everything on the internet and on Facebook. So go to formula1lofts.com to have a look more about the history and the pigeons and everything. And I wish you all luck for the next phase, which sounds like it'll be internationals.
Well, we can hope.
And I've got a personal want to see one of your pigeons doing very well in one-off races, because I think that will that'll light up an interest in a whole different bunch of people. And I think they genuinely can do it. So thank you again.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for your time and coming down.
You've been listening to the RPI Podcast. Check out more episodes at podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com.